Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Governor Ivey's $6 million giveaway. Also, the V-Team takes a look at gay adoption. And Senator Luther Strange has a message for the voters of Alabama.
My friends, I have a speech here. It's a speech about what this state needs. There's no need in my telling you what this state needs. You are the state and you know what you need. You over there, look at your pants. Have they got holes in the knees? Listen to your stomach. Did you ever hear it rumble for hunger? And you, what about your crops? Did they ever rot in the field because the road was so bad you couldn't get them to market? And you, what about your kids? Are they growing up ignorant as dirt, ignorant as you because there's no school for them? No, I'm not going to read you any speech.
Poor, ignorant, and unemployed? I don't care. I'm Luther Strange, a DC insider, and I approve this message. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome.
Good morning.
Nope.
You guys seem a little feisty today. Am I wrong to assume that? Because in the pre-warm-up hours, y'all were
a little verbose.
Yeah. Well, and it's like nothing's happening in Alabama politics. We're searching for stories, aren't we, Josh?
It's just, we're just overrun with dumb. At times it becomes too much for you. It does.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point of delirium at this point. This week we reported a story that showed where Senator Luther Strange used portions of his campaign contributions outside of what is permissible according to the law of Alabama, according to the statutes. Now, this is all alleged right now, but Secretary of State John Merrill said that was a problem, and he has referred the matter to the Ethics Commission, Susan.
That's correct. There were two donations made they're technically donations, or let's call them transactions, made in December 2016 from Luther Strange's National Senate account back to his AG's campaign account here in Alabama. Not only was this outside the 120-day window that they can raise money after a campaign, and it was before he can raise money going forward, that causes the first problem. The second problem is that it totals over $1,400, which exceeds the limit, the $1,000 threshold set by the Fair Campaign Practice Act. So he has committed two problems there. And one is a Class B felony and one is a Class C felony.
Jack, the big question I think here, Secretary Merrill seems to be being a stand-up guy and do what he promised you and the rest of the state that he would do, and that is look at all these things and refer them to ethics as possible if he saw any problems. Will Steve Marshall, however, do the right thing and stand up and say, look, we're going to investigate this?
Well, it depends on what the Ethics Commission does, just like it did in the Bentley case. Listen, nobody ever accused Luther of being smart. Not only was he an absentee attorney general, he's a political idiot.
He really is a political idiot.
Honestly.
All in favor of calling Strange a political idiot? No, don't raise your hand.
Our phones will burn up after this.
But honestly, it's true. He could have danced into this office. There was nobody who could possibly challenge him on this. And he's made every misstep you could make on the way to this thing. You couldn't screw it up worse than he screwed this up.
Yeah, I mean, first he says there's no investigation of Bentley. Then he takes the office that Bentley offers him. Bentley then gets convicted on the stuff that he said there was no investigation of. And then all along he's doing the hinky stuff. And really the problem I think is going to get Luther, if Steve Marshall has the guts to do this thing, is there's money that was paid to 2 campaign workers that looks like it may have crossed the line, Susan.
Yeah, there are 2 instances. One, where they did cross the line, they kind of got their bookkeeping messed up a little bit, is also in December 2016. That's where both of these people had been being paid all along from the AG's campaign account. And in December, they crossed over and were not only being paid from the AG's account, but also from the Luther for Senate account. And one of them was tagged as fundraising. So if either one of these individuals did any fundraising during this period that was in between the campaigns, he's got more problems.
Now, Josh, I understand this as being, they can do stuff for Luther Strange as Attorney General, but nothing for Luther Strange as a candidate, because there is no race to be run.
Yeah, couldn't they just pay them out of the Ace Gov account? Like they did with Rebecca Mason?
Like everybody else.
I don't understand, and the attorney seems to be confused that they have. What are you doing? Come on, man. What are you doing?
I mean, Jack, and another thing that's come down here is that the power elite in Washington have poked their nose into this. And they dared call me and say, well, you got it wrong. You need to go to Yellowhammer News and see what they reported.
Wow.
And when I quit laughing, I said, are you really serious? I mean,
Who is that?
And another piece of information out there that they're getting that's wrong is they're saying that federal law trumps state law in this case, and it doesn't.
no.
It doesn't.
No. But Jack, how do you think the people of Alabama are going to feel when they come down here and they tell people in Washington, D.C., if they work for Roy Moore or Dale Marsh or anybody that's running against Luther, that they will cut them out of the Republican budget?
An edict came down from the National Republican Senatorial Committee that said any vendor in Washington, direct mail vendor, fundraising vendor, television production company, if you work for anybody except Luther who has been deemed the incumbent, then you're going to be cut off the Republican National Committee's vendor list.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's tantamount to put them out of business.
That's everything Donald Trump ran against. Do they not see it? Are they that blind and that stupid?
Maybe they're as serious about it as he was.
What are they protecting?
That's what I don't
This guy's been
understand.
there, 2 months? They send out a press release every day. Every time he goes to the bathroom, you get an alert on your computer. I mean, it's pitiful.
Because he'll
it's
be
the worst
into what they
operation
want.
I ever saw.
He'll be into what they want. He'll do
Exactly.
whatever they need.
That's right. Well, my thing is, and we talked to Terry Lathan, who was kind of split the baby, but she did say that people in Alabama wouldn't appreciate them come down here meddling. I think Frances Taylor, the chair of the Women's Federation of Republican Women, she said, this is a bridge too far, and they didn't pay attention, like Jack said, to the last election. People are sick of D.C. telling them, Susan, we're the make-me state. I mean, really?
I don't know what they think they're playing with down here. We are the make-me state. The last thing we want is a bunch of D.C. people coming down here and telling us what we can and cannot do, especially when it comes to our vote.
Well, and I think they want a lapdog. They're afraid they might get a Roy Moore. They may be afraid they'd get a Randy Brinson. I know they're terrified that they'd get Ed Henry. Don't you think there, Josh?
I'm terrified.
I'm pretty terrified.
Well,
actually, I like Ed.
I like Ed too.
But I don't think he's got the chops for D.C.
Washingtonian, but
No.
No, he's not Tony.
You know everything that was going on there, I guarantee you that.
Including when he got a hang now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, and Ed, one thing I'll give Ed kudos about is, he is often mistaken, but seldom in doubt. So you have to give him credit.
hopefully, and I believe you can write it down. I'm be surprised if Luther made the runoff.
I will be too.
I will too.
All right, we're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis. Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Some said it wouldn't happen, others feared it would happen, but Governor Kay Ivey has signed this religious liberty bill, which is code word, in my mind, for discrimination against same-sex couples, whether you like this or you think it's a religious thing. The fact of the matter is, this bill says that religious organizations that operate adoption facilities can say no to same-sex couples who wish to adopt children. Jack, she says this is about a religious freedom and making sure that children
She did not speak the truth when those words came out of her mouth. I mean, this is purely and simply anti-gay legislation. And the problem with Alabama legislature, and I'm the gay guy on the panel, and I don't get all lathered up about some of these issues, but this legislature would rather make a statement than make a difference. And that's the way it's been since the Republicans took over. They're a bunch of kooks.
Jack, that's damn profound. I'll have to say it. Rather make a statement than make a difference. And I think that may be the crux of the whole thing.
They'd rather leave a child in a bad situation in a foster home than to give that child a chance just because of someone's sexual choice. I have a real problem with that.
Yeah, and not a choice, though.
Right.
Not a choice. They would say it's not a choice.
I would agree. I misspoke.
You know, this sort of thing is one of the few things that makes me legitimately angry when I go and cover them. I mean, there's a lot of stupid things that happen. And I understand the pandering and things like that, but this bill does nothing. It doesn't do anything for anybody. There's nobody that goes through these adoption agencies that couldn't choose the parents, the adoptive parents. That's 99.9% of these adoptions that occur anywhere. They could have chosen these parents, whoever they wanted to. All it does is make a statement to say that we are hateful. We're hateful towards a certain group of people because they're a little bit different than us, whether they chose that or not. It doesn't matter whether they chose that or not, because they didn't. They didn't choose to live that way. It's not a choice. It's how they are. It's natural. It's nature. And to discriminate against people, there was a gentleman stood up in this and said his sister, an addict, died, and he would not have been able to adopt his niece had she chosen one of these adoption agencies to go through. What are you doing? I mean, what are we doing to people here when we do these sorts of things? I just can't understand it.
And I get the thing. I do get that these people have a religious aversion or a religious belief that says that this is not proper. But this is the United States of America, and people have, I think the Supreme Court has made it very clear that discrimination against any class of people is wrong. So so in my mind, this is just pander bear stuff, Jack. That's all it is. They want to look tough.
Supreme Court spoke, and Roy Moore didn't get it, and look what happened to him.
Exactly.
Now they want to go and do this fine.
This is not a religious thing, though, okay?
No.
This is something that it's about their personal beliefs about people. That's all it is, because I guarantee you could go and negotiate out one of these adoptions over a nice, shrimp cocktail, even though a couple of sentences in the Bible in the same verses right before that, you're not supposed to eat shellfish. It's the same, it's the same directives against this sort of thing. You're picking and choosing based on your personal beliefs and what you find as, offensive to yourself.
Well, I happen being a bootyologist, as Alvin Holmes is. I feel that we'll leave religion on the table for now. One thing that is not, should not be on the table for certain is a story that you reported this week, Josh, where Kay Ivey is giving Bingo Bob, or that sexy beast Bob Riley, as I like to call him, $6.5 million. Well, kind of giving it to Bob.
Yeah, it's going to Airbus, and it's going to Airbus for a facility there that's an educational facility, the Aviation Institute, or whatever they're calling it down there, the Airbus Aviation Institute. It's going to be managed by Airbus. It's going to Airbus is going to charge an entrance fee to the taxpayers that paid for the thing. It's going to go to train Airbus's employees. The only thing that the Airbus is not doing is paying for it.
Right, Susan. I mean, they say they're a partner, but what?
That's a great partnership, man.
Everybody should have that kind of partnership.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even have to put any skin in the game, whether it's monetarily or they're people in the game.
Jack, Riley's.
Don't get me started on the Rileys. Yeah, I know. I'm sure he negotiated the deal since they are a client of his now that he's a lobbyist. But why didn't they give that $6.5 million to the aviation college that we already have?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Make too much damn sense.
Yeah. I don't know who's advising Governor Kay Ivey, but I tell you, she has made some bonehead choices. She's made some good decisions, but most of lately it's just like one bad thing after the other. And I don't get it, Josh.
Well, I mean, you know who her legal advisor is, and so that explains some of the bad choices. But I assume that this is a setup for campaign contributions in the future that's going to come rolling in. I mean, she's $800,000 in debt, so she needs it. But I mean, I just can't. I don't either. I don't understand how this does. I mean, I assume it's to prove Bob Riley's worth to Airbus.
I guess. I mean, this week, the Attorney General's office came forward and said that they had investigated ASU for several years and had found nothing that they could charge anyone at ASU with. And Jack, a lot of money, a lot of time.
That is the biggest joke that's ever been spoken out loud. And you know that because you did great investigation.
Yeah, Jack.
Of all the wrongdoing over there, Josh. You did a great job.
It was a farce. I mean, it was a couple of months into this. They knew full well that this was a farce, but they had become alienated there at the governor's office with Bentley. That's who started this. I mean, it wound up at the AG's office. They never wanted it. They never wanted this thing, and I have a real doubt that they ever really cared about it because there was just not enough fraud there to do anything.
Luther had a contract with ASU before he was attorney for some ridiculous, Indian studies?
He studied Indians, but they tried to put him out of business several times. We're going to have to leave it there, but this is, Chris McCool did a great job, and the DA on this thing, but Bentley, it's back to Bentley. Bentley has slayed more people in Alabama than we can imagine with his misdeeds. All right, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. Up next in the House, for Speaker Mac McCutcheon. Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Once again this week, our special guest is Speaker of the House, Mac McCutcheon. Mr. Speaker?
Welcome to the People's House, Bill.
Thank you,
Good to have
sir.
you.
That is a phrase I look forward to hearing every week because we know that you're doing your best to make it the People's House, and we appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the big issues of the week has been redistricting. It has been court ordered that this happened, and you had a long, long day of trying to get that through. But it looks like, God willing, everything is going to work out fine.
Well, I think so. There's no way that we were able to get everyone happy with the bill itself, the redistricting apportionment issue. But we've tried very hard to take the court order and look at that court order and what it requires and go down the list to make sure that we've addressed every issue in that court order. And one of the big issues and one of the big debates right now is the fact that some counties wanted to be made whole. And at the end of the day, when you look at the plus or minus, you look at the voters and the numbers that we had, some counties were having a hard time doing what the court requested of us and make the county whole as well. Right. So in that is the debate, and we know that there's some filibuster and some opposition to it, but I think we're working very hard to try to get it worked out, and at the end of the day, we're going to get the bill passed.
And the court basically said, they've said that you can do it politically. In other words, you can make a district more Republican or more Democratic, but you cannot do it based on race.
That's right.
And that's the thing
right. Yes.
that you're trying to avoid while making sure that everybody has a fair shot and a voice in the process. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And of course, the Senate, they've got their bill that they're working on with the Senate districts, House with the House districts, and I think the Senate is moving their bill, and we're ready. We're about ready to move our bill in the House.
Good. Well, we have. I know you have priorities that are left. One of them is the budgets. The Education Trust Fund, especially, is always a big bear to get your hands around. But how do you feel about that?
I feel good about it. Members have had the opportunity to have input. Chairman Poole, the bill went into committee, and he has sent out through email to the membership and had copies for all the members. They've had the weekend to look over it and look at it, and we're back now. We'll have the bill on the floor this evening here in the House. I haven't heard a lot of opposition. I think it's a good budget. It addresses everything from increased funding for our pre-K. It addressed teacher-student ratios. We've got some extra money for maintenance and OCMs in the budget. So I think it's a good budget, and really every one of our budgets always goes to conference.
Right.
That's just a natural.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't think there'll be a lot of issues that'll have to be settled in conference. We're pretty well lockstep with the Senate.
Well, and that's not an easy one to get done because there's so many interests in there.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, this is always an issue with the education budget. Do you feel like that the teachers and the administrators will be mostly happy with what comes out of the budget?
I think they're pleased. Of course, they would like to see a raise,
Sure.
of course, and we would like to give them a raise. Right now, any additional funds that we have that would go into their salaries is being tied up with their benefit package because we want to keep their premiums low and provide a good benefit package for them because that's important as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, people go into education because they want to teach, but it's also nice to know that at the end of that teaching career, you've got a nice nest egg to rely on.
That's right.
Not a lot of jobs have that anymore.
That's correct. That's correct.
The other thing that's been bounced around a lot is the prison bill. But do you feel like y'all have got something now that's doable, and could you tell us a little bit about what it does?
Yes, we took the Senate version that they sent down to us, and we've been working on it. Last week, there were a lot of hours put into looking at the Senate version that was sent. We went, and I had mentioned to you before, we went all the way back to the previous session conference committee and looked at that as well. And through all of the research and the work that we've done, we actually came up with a bill, had a draft done yesterday from the House. It's going to be a substitute to the Senate version. So when we address it on the floor, it will actually be the Senate bill in sub. And we made a few changes in there where the Senate bill was using a local sponsorship to build the actual facilities themselves, and then the state would lease it. We went one step further, and they had 2 opportunities for that, and we set aside 3.
Okay.
And another thing that we did to the bill was that we decided, instead of trying to provide maintenance funding for the women's facility, we put money in there to build a brand new one.
Well, I think that's going to make a lot of people happy. You know, I think we've talked about this before. Susan and I have gone to Tutwiler. We went with Commissioner Dunn. Very impressive what has been done there in changing the culture. But the facility, as good as they can make it, is that, but it is still falling down around them. So,
well, when we went back and looked at some of the research and looked at some of the costs that we had, some of these facilities are so old.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we could put millions of dollars into them, but at the end of the day, you've still got an old facility.
Right.
And that facility has had so many problems. And so we looked at the numbers and we felt like it was best to go ahead and just build a new facility. And actually, the bill that we've got that we're going to sub on the Senate bill is actually going to be less money bonded out from the state perspective than what the Senate version had.
we went underneath and looked at the physical plant, and looked at the infrastructure, and it, you know, you wouldn't want to live there if it was your house. I can assure you
that's
that.
true. That's true.
So far, we've got about a minute. How would you grade this session? Do you feel like it's been a good one, a great one, or are we just in a transition period between this session and the next session because it's tough to get stuff done?
Well, I think it's been a good session, especially in light of the issues that we've had to face. It's been a tough session.
Yeah.
Because with the governor's issue coming off of the speaker's conviction, I mean, we went into a session where there was a lot of unrest, but the members have come together and they've worked hard. We've accomplished a lot of good things. Just the fact of the impeachment issue and the way the House handled that, we've made the final report and it was turned in, and we did it the right way. And we put something in place that the state of Alabama will be able to use going forward, if, hopefully not, but if and when this ever has to happen again. So I'm very, very proud of the House for what they've done. We've got 2 budgets that we're working on. One of the budgets that we sent out of this House was the general fund, and we actually have some money in that to carry over for next year, which is very unheard of in the type of environment that we're in here, and so I think that's a good thing. So overall, Bill, I think we've had a good year, but we are getting ready for the next year. We're moving in the direction for next year while we're working today.
Sure. Well, we want to thank you for your leadership. It's been a steady ship so far. I know it's not been easy, but you enjoying the job?
I am enjoying the job. Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for the job you do, and thank you for joining us every week. It
Thank you,
means a lot
Bill.
to us and our viewers.
I really appreciate y'all coming to the People's House.
We love being here.
Okay.
We want to thank Speaker Mac McCutcheon for being our guest again this week. If you'd like to catch more of the extended version, go to our website at alreporter.com and watch a much longer version with a lot more info. We want to thank you for watching. You watch us because we watch them. Welcome back to the extended version, brought to you by Black Flag. We hunt down roaches and kill them in every corner.
God almighty, we can't make it fast enough.
We need too many boots.
I think that's what we need. We need to get a Black Flag or Raid thing to sponsor this segment.
The roaches have grown wings. They're flying now.
I want to get back to what you were talking about in your coverage of the ASU thing. A very serious matter, because this destroyed people's lives.
Oh, it
didn't destroy, but it harmed them.
It destroyed a couple of people's lives over there with Elton Dean and the things that came out in an audit report about him, and some allegations that were made about his private life that were never substantiated in any way. And not to mention that they were just flat wrong. I mean, I know what took place there, and they were wrong, and it just that university has, I'll say that in 2013, they had their first real, or 2014, I'm sorry, the 2014 budget that was passed in 2013, they had their first real cut because of this. They cut $26 million out of their budget, out of their operating budget. You know, this is ASU, it's not Auburn. So, I mean, $26 million, a school like Auburn would feel a huge hit on that. A school like ASU, it's a quarter of the budget.
Wow.
And so that's what it did just in the short term. I guarantee you that school lost more than $100 million all told.
And this basically, we now believe what goes back to the relationship that Robert Bentley had with the Alabama Education Association, who helped him win the election against Bradley Byrd.
Yeah, I think that it had a lot to do with that. I think he had a relationship with Joe Reed, who's the head of the legal department at AEA, and also the head of the Democratic Party in Alabama, which is running like a top. It's. I think that's where this came from. Reed has a long time guy on the board there at ASU. There's been a long running feud between him, Donald Watkins, and John Knight, and it's a confusing, sort of convoluted thing that has taken place forever there. But and at one point in the late 2000s, they removed Reed's name from the Acadome. It was the Joel Reed Acadome. They kicked him off the board and removed his name because of his actions. They said
there's a very likely payback.
Yeah, and so it kind of evolved out of that, literally. I mean, and I think he met with Joseph Silver, and they arranged this meeting with Bentley to turn this stuff over. And honestly, I think at the beginning of this thing, Bentley was kind of an unwitting participant in here. He didn't realize what was actually going on, and he started this investigation into them. And then along the way, I think it became politically motivated actions that took place there to shut down the Public Policy Institute. There were some vindictive things that took place because they challenged the governor's power on a lot of these things, and so he was angered by that, and it just stretched on, and they knew full well the damage that they were doing, and that they were not ever going to be able to get anybody on any fraud over there.
Well, I think the Attorney General's office did what they were tasked to do. I think Chris McCool did a good job. Jack, I want to change subjects here. Kay Ivey appointed Acting Chief Justice Lynn Stewart, I know one of your favorites, to be the Supreme Court Chief Justice. She's going to run in 2019, and I think she's going to be challenged by Tom Parker. But, Lynn Stewart she's basically a BCA candidate. I mean, she's received millions from them.
You might call her an operative the way we have an activist court in Alabama. I've known Lynn a long time. When I worked at AOC, and she was a candidate. I think she was elected in 2000. But everybody had high hopes. She's very smart, very opinionated. But I don't think this Supreme Court is what we need in Alabama. It truly is controlled by the Business Council of Alabama. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a sad day, because we worked so hard in the old days to shed the trial lawyer image that the court had for so long. And then, to me, it was pretty balanced for a long time. But in recent years, I just think they've lost their way.
Well, and look, she still has not answered why she and Jim Maine, Justice Jim Maine, and Mike Boland would not recuse from the Roy Moore and parts of the Roy Moore investigation. I think they need to answer for that. And I tell you, they need to fix this thing that the special Supreme Court did, Susan, where all JIC proceedings now, even after adjudicated, are kept secret.
That is just, it should be unconstitutional, simply because, Freedom of Information Act, we should be able to be able to look at those records. Anybody in the public should be able to see those records after it's been adjudicated. They have since sealed them, and that sets precedent for everything going forward being completely sealed.
And whether you like Roy Moore or not, I mean, the records of a legal case should be public, and it is under the Constitution until they decided it was not.
Well, you look at the Supreme Court here in the state, the Constitution seems to mean very, very little to them in most ways. And honestly, it's to the point now where they have rewritten law. I mean, some of the things that they've done in the politically motivated cases, gambling, the one that I have studied the most. there are professors around that don't take that seriously. I mean, they don't take their rulings seriously because they are so, they don't follow their own precedent that they set in cases just in the last few years. They don't follow it. And so it's obvious what's taking place here. And Jack's right. We got, no matter how you feel, no matter what your leanings are on things, you've got to get a court there that follows the law. Right. If you just will follow the law and be above it all, I think we, for a lot of things, I think we have that in the U.S. Supreme Court for the most part, but we sure don't have it here, and you see the results of it.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, again, I wrote this week, best justice that money can buy, and we're obviously not paying enough for good justices because, I mean, they see things that aren't there and they deny things that are there. And the truth is what you said, they are bought and paid for by BCA. And Roy Moore was one of the few that would ever rule against a business interest. The rest of them are like...
Yeah, I know. And, it's what I've always said about Roy Moore is I don't agree with him on some of the things he's done that have gotten him kicked off the court. But if you isolate that out, overall, he's a pretty good jurist, compared to the others.
Yeah.
It's a pretty low bar.
And, like this gambling thing, everybody is afraid to touch it. Legislature won't give us the right to vote. Supreme Court won't rule on it. I mean, it's because they're all afraid it might cost them their seat.
Well, there's 25% of the Republican base, right, that doesn't want gaming. Am I correct?
I don't even know if I really can't. We've never polled it. We've never conducted a poll where we ask Republican voters, do you favor this lottery or do you favor table gambling? Do you favor the Indians having a monopoly?
We don't know.
Nobody knows what the answer to that is.
I don't think they want to know the answer.
They don't.
I think they're afraid of the answer because it's going to be overwhelming. Because the polls we know that are not just Republican polls say that people want the right to vote on this, up or down, and it seems that a few people in the Supreme Court and in the legislature are controlling what they think. They're picking and choosing what they think that Alabamians
and
need.
the thing is that the Porch Creek Indians, and I like some of those folks, they're blocking legislation as well. Excuse me, but they are going to own the state of Alabama, lock, stock, and barrel after this next election.
They've got a great plan, man. They've got a fantastic plan for controlling it.
Well, and it's going to work. But one of the things we're going to do, we're going to have a tote board, and every candidate in Alabama that runs for office who takes money from a sovereign nation outside of the USA, we're going to put their name in lights and let everyone know that they might as well be taking money from communist China.
And it's going to stay there all the way to the election. It will not be removed. It will not go away.
I can tell you what happens to people when there's a monopoly and they control everything. Got a nice personal story about that.
Well, listen, the best thing that they could do is the legislature, like Jack said, let the people vote. But they are scared of their own shadow. They are not going to let a gaming bill up. And we only got about 40 seconds, but it doesn't matter because it's the extended version or the afterburner, whatever you want to call it.
Want to talk.
One of the things that just chaps my butt is that they are not going to bring up this ethics bill that has been being worked on since Mike Hubbard was convicted to clarify, strengthen, and get this ethics thing locked down a little better. They're not going to bring it up. It's dead because they are too afraid to make BCA, Alpha, and all those people mad. Right, Jack?
Well, the good news is if they keep it the same, those people are going to stay mad.
Yeah.
Because this whole defining what a principal is and in a corporate, that's really got them in a box.
Yeah.
And let's leave them there.
Let them stew for a little while.
Yeah, well, I just think that it shows weakness on the part of the leadership. We're pretty sure that when Luther was here, that with the urging of people like Matt Hart and those folks, he came to the legislature and said, look, Senator Marsh or President Pro Tem Marsh, look, Speaker McCutcheon, we need a deal on this. Will y'all help us work on that? They said, yeah, we'll do it. We'll support it. Yay, bomb, boom. Luther leaves. Marshall comes in. He doesn't know what's going on. He gets advice from that woman, Miss Robertson, whatever her name is, from the Policy Institute. She's whispering in his ear, don't do it. He's getting bad advice, so he goes,
And let me
next year.
tell you something. You talk about
Catherine
changing the
Robinson.
ethics laws.
I like
Have
that
you
woman
been
better.
to a nice restaurant in Montgomery during session?
Yeah.
It's swarming with those people.
Yeah.
And it's swarming with lobbyists buying their meals. Nothing has changed. These people are lying on their reports. I see it every day. I know who's spending what on what. And it's rampant.
That's because there is no high-end restaurant that Jack won't eat at.
Or a low-end one either.
Now, I do know some restaurateurs that are complaining because they're holding the lobbyists around the lunch trade, and they're ending up losing a whole lot of business
Yeah,
this
well,
year.
they got this crazy schedule now where they don't let people have lunch. And then there's the elder abuse stuff that's going on.
Yeah, two nights this week where they went way into the night, right?
But let's get back to this notion that, Marshall goes into office under the worst possible circumstances. They let Alice Martin go, and then he brings in this Catherine Robertson. And, where's Marshall's people? I mean, he's got that we said originally that was going to be a bad idea. She comes out of the Alabama Policy Institute, which is about as phony an organization as
I'm a
possible.
columnist. I mean, could somebody hire me? I mean, I could advise somebody. I mean, seriously, that's what she does. I mean, she's a columnist. She was writing things that nobody was paying attention to at the Policy
The
Institute.
thing that, she did work for Jeff Sessions, but that was a long time ago. That doesn't give you the stamp of, good housekeeping seal.
Well, I'm going to say this. Everybody I've talked to who works over there at the AG's office had high praise for Marshall when he came in. Let's give him a chance. Like you said, he came in under the worst possible conditions. And, there's a cloud over him because Bentley appointed him. What deal did Bentley make with him? That's what everybody wants to know. Everybody says he's a pretty straight up guy.
Yeah, I don't believe he
I'm
did
going to hold
anything.
judgment.
I didn't think he did anything nefarious, but what we're hearing, Susan, you've heard the same thing, is that she is causing him all kinds of problems.
She is, and he's going to have to get control of that office. He's absolutely going to have to get. He's going to have to get his own people in there. He's going to have to get control, and people that have his best interest at heart. From what we're hearing, she doesn't.
Right. Well, and she may be a fine person, but what we're hearing out of the AG's office, and it's not from Matt Hart, is that, Hart has been alienated. He's been pushed to the side while Catherine is alienating everybody she can. So wait a minute. Does this sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
So that she has most influence over. Is her name?
You talking about the free and accepted Masons?
I think that may be.
Or in Alabama, the free and unaccepted Masons?
Yeah.
This is.
A consultant friend of ours ran into Ms. Mason the other day over in Tuscaloosa, and her child said, "Hi, my name is
Beep.
Beep, and what's your name?" And this person grabbed up the child and said, "She's nobody's son."
And walked off. Priceless.
Mercy.
You can't make this stuff up, Jack.
Bitter party of one.
But, there's no hinky thing going on there. We're pretty sure of that. But,
Well,
Marshall's a good guy. We like him. We think he can do a good job. But, boy, he's getting some terrible advice.
She's alienating people. She's chewing people out. She's doing that Rebecca Mason thing. Or actually, this has a domestic abuse, look to it. And what it is, if a woman gets into a relationship with a man or vice versa, and they start driving their friends away, getting everybody away from them, and it's a control issue.
Well, I'm worried about Steve Marshall. If he'll stand up on this Luther thing, he could probably do himself some good. But
Yeah, he's going to have to show a little more strength than what he's shown so far. And I mean, if he doesn't, he's going to continue to get overrun because there are a lot of people that want to run that office.
Yeah. Well, and I'm hearing that, from people that just think the world of him and would love to offer him advice, that he's just not listening. But anyway.
And it's a much bigger game down here in Montgomery. It's a much tougher play. It's a lot more moving parts.
Marshall County is just a rodeo. This is,
Yeah.
this is actual physical combat.
Yeah, this is the bull bronco part.
You're going to have to make some people angry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just all there is to it.
Well, you got to gore some
I hate
oxes.
that personally. But
Yeah,
know,
well,
Yeah,
would
you never like to make anybody angry,
There is
right?
not anyone on this panel
No.
that would ever want to harm a fly.
I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
No, never. All right, well, I think we're kind of wind it down from now. Black Flag brings you the afterburner. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. We are serious about corruption, but we like to make fun of the corruptible. You watch us because we watch them.
Corruptibles, is that like untouchable?
Corruptibles.